Look at that stunning melanistic. Let's go. He starts at 223 and goes to 264. We're back here on the Hunter Call the Wild, and today we're going to go through 7 top tips to help you put more rares in your lodge. How do I find more rares? That is one of the most asked questions I get asked at live streams. So today we're going to cover everything I do in order to find way more rares. And this guy I got through grinding. Now you don't have to grind in order to get rares, but it definitely is going to help. But we're going to go through all of that today. Now guys, let me know in the comments what your absolute best rare is in the game. And somewhere in the video I am going to share a key phrase. Drop that in the comments for your chance to win a 1-month membership to the channel. And let's shoot this beauty. So right now we are on my Whitetail Great One grind. Anytime you do a grind, you are going to spawn diamonds, you are going to spawn rares, and eventually, if you keep grinding, you will eventually get that Great One. But that is definitely not the only way to find rares. And he is down. Let's go. Now, different rares definitely do have different spawn rates, and some are definitely more difficult than others. And a melanistic whitetail is a very sweet trophy. Not the easiest to get, but anytime you do a grind, if you do kill enough whitetail, eventually you will spawn a melanistic whitetail. Now, a nice big gold, I can't promise you that. But if you do use herd management, that will definitely help in getting bigger rares and more diamonds. But let's start with tip number 1. But first, let's taxi this beauty. Okay. Now, the first tip I have for you is to explore all of your maps. There are a lot of maps in the game now. What are there, 14? There are 15 maps in the game since the release of the last map in June, and that would be this one right here, Sundar Patan. And every single one of these maps, when unhunted, does have some diamonds and at least some rares on the map. So if you have never pulled a rare from any of your maps, you definitely do have rares on your map somewhere. You just got to get out and find them. But how do you do that? Let's talk about that right now. Now, for example, let's say that I wanted to find a rare whitetail. So what you would then do is pick a map that has whitetail on it. So I'm going to pick Revontuli here. So basically what you want to do is really hunt one map at a time. If you don't find a rare on that map, go to the next map that has whitetail and scour it. And if you don't find a rare there are a lot of maps with whitetail on them now. Go to every single map. I would be very surprised if you spotted every single whitetail in all of your whitetail populations if you didn't have a rare there somewhere. It is possible, I can't promise there's one there, but there is a very good chance that there is one somewhere. Let's jump up here. So the first thing you want to do is change it to whitetail drink time. Now, if you're not sure what time all the different species drink for whatever rare it is you're looking for, what you want to do is jump into my Discord, and I will leave the link in the description below. Okay, so now we are in my Discord. You want to go to references and then map specs, and there is an info sheet for every map in the game in here, and a big shout out to Pumpkin for creating these amazing info sheets for us. And so we are going to Revontuli. Now this is a huge sheet because there are so many species in Revontuli, and here is whitetail right here. Okay, so I actually am pulling up the info on whitetail on the Leighton Lake sheet just because I want you guys to be able to see it in the video. It has the exact same info for whitetail on every map that has whitetail. So in here, everything you need to know about whitetail is here. So we have their class, what level they go to. Yes, there is 10 fabled, their max weight in kilograms and pounds. And then we have all of their zone times, drink, feed, and rest, all of their collars. And then, this is very important, come in and reference what the rare variations are for whatever species it is that you're hunting for a rare for. So for whitetail, their rares include piebald, which is rare, there's purple, and albino and melanistic, both of which are considered to be very rare. So the time they drink is 8 to 12, so we're gonna set the time to whitetail drink time. Okay. So usually I like to set it about halfway through the drink time. Usually I just find they're in their zones a lot more in the second half of their drink time as compared to the first half. So I'm going to change it to about 10 o'clock. And then what I would recommend pulling up is a hotspot map for whitetail. And again, you will find this in my Discord. So here we have references, and there's the map specs, the next category down is Lady's hotspot maps, and I do have a hotspot map for every map in the game. I do need to update Rancho. I'm going to be working on that very soon, but let's pull open Revontuli. Okay, so there is our whitetail map. Now, these are the zones that I have for whitetail. You aren't going to have exactly the same zones, but basically what it's showing you is where you need to look for whitetail. So you're not going to find any whitetail on this approximately 20% of the map, but everywhere, basically from this line underneath where you're seeing zones and above, all of those water sources need to be checked for whitetail, because you can have whitetail zones at any of those pieces of water. So they all need to be checked. And that brings us to tip number 2, which is to cover a lot of ground. And basically what that means is get out and don't take your time with your hunt. I mean, if that's the way you enjoy to hunt, definitely take your time. But if you're seriously looking for a rare, what you want to do is go out, find all of your zones, and spot every single whitetail in every single zone. Now, I do have a zone over here, but they're not there, so I will come back later and check. Now, I am set up for a whitetail grind, so it's very easy for me to check, but you won't be set up for a whitetail grind, most likely. Maybe you will. But you just basically want to go from the closest outpost and run to all of the lakes. You can set tents up if you wish. It will definitely save you time, but you want to go to every single water source on the top 80% of the map and spot every single whitetail. You will likely run out of whitetail drink time while you're doing this, and so you just want to set the time back. So maybe travel with a tent, or you can just change the time back in an outpost. But friendly reminder that changing the time in a tent is 25% cheaper than changing the time in any outpost. Now, when I say you want to cover a lot of ground, basically what I mean by that is you want to get out and very quickly check every single piece of water where whitetail can be drinking. Now, if you do that on this map and you do not find a rare, then you want to go to another map. So say maybe we want to then do the same thing, but do it in Layton Lakes. And I think there are 5 maps, something like that, that have whitetail now. Like, we have a lot of maps with whitetail. So just get out and check, and that's one way to find a rare. Cover a lot of ground. So basically when I'm trying to cover a lot of ground, what I do is I run from the closest outpost and I stop running at about 150 meters away from the lake, and then I start walking and spotting, so hopefully I don't spook anything. So I do a lot of running. I stop running when I get close to the lakes, and then it's spotting time. Spot everything that's there, nothing there, head to the next lake and do the same thing again until you have checked every single spot where whatever species it is you are looking for a rare in, until all of those zones have been checked. So if I were hunting for a rare red deer in Quattro, I would come here into my Discord, and I do use this every single day. Go to references, COTW, map specs, and we're going to open the Quattro sheet. Then we're going to find red deer, which is the last column right here, and there it shows all of their rares. Piebald albino and melanistic, and of course we do have great one red deer in the game as well, and they drink from 6 to 10. Now, the reason that we're hunting for rares in drink zones is because they're just way easier to find. You just have to find a piece of water during their drink time and spot around the edge of the water. Just so much easier than hunting feed zones. You can do this with feed zones and rest zones. It's just going to take you way more time. It's just way more efficient to hunt for a rare in drink zones. That's just my preference. And of course, we are going to jump down to Lady's hotspot maps. We're going to open Quattro, and we are going to look for the red deer map. There it is there. So not all of these hotspot maps show you exactly where I have my zones, but usually for species that have a great one, like red deer, whitetail, black bears, I do often show the zones. Now, you're not going to have the exact same zones, but all the spots where I have zones means you could have zones there, so definitely check there. And spots where I don't have zones, but there can be red deer, I have highlighted. So anywhere there's yellow on this map, those are spots that need to be checked for red deer, for those rares. Now, if you are hunting for rares on a map that you do not have a grind set up on that map already, then I would recommend setting tents up in spots that will allow you to get to multiple different lakes more quickly. We're allowed to put 16 tents down on the map at any given time. That is the maximum amount. So use all of them if you can afford to, and if not, that's a great goal. Try and grind for some cash to get some tents, because the faster you can get around your map, the faster you're going to be able to find those rares to put in your lodge. It just is more hunting and less running. So I started at this outpost here. I'm running. I know that there's red deer right at the bottom of the boot here. So we're gonna come and check. Ooh, there we go. We got a mating call. 150 to 200 meters away. So whenever I get that, I try to figure out approximately where they're gonna be. And my waypoint's working. Yay! It wasn't just a second ago. And we have red deer. And that brings me to the next tip, which is to hunt new maps whenever possible. Whenever, and I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, whenever you hunt a map that has never been hunted, all brand new maps come with at least a few diamonds and rares on them. So if you, oh, hello. That's a nice one. Not a rare, but a nice level 7. Wouldn't it be sweet if he were albino or melanistic or even piebald? That would be delightful. And that is exactly what we're looking for. Now, while you're doing this, it's not a bad idea to take out your 2 biggest males from every zone. And that way, if you don't have a rare on your map, you do have a chance at spawning one. But if you're trying to spawn one, that's probably not the best way. The best way would be to set up a grind. And we are going to talk about that in a few minutes. So if you don't have a lot of rares, there are definitely rares running around on your maps right now. There really are. Now, you're not going to know what species they're in, and if you just want to find any rare, not a specific species, what I would then recommend doing is just do this process of checking lakes during drink time. Start with the first species on the map, check all their hotspots, everywhere that they drink, and spot every single animal in every single zone. And if you don't find one, move to the next species and rinse and repeat for every species on the map. If you do that, you will come away with a rare, and there goes my level 7. The unfortunate part is there are probably more red deer back there that spooked, possibly, and I won't get to spot them for rares. Now, if that happens, there is a specific skill that will definitely help you to get more rares, and that is this one right here, Disturb Vegetation. And it reads, reveals a new track type, Disturb Vegetation. Animals sometimes produce these in between other tracks. This makes it easier to follow the trail of difficult animals and reveals the animal's fur type when combined with the track knowledge skill. And this is the track knowledge skill. You always want to have 3 in track knowledge. Now, the unfortunate part about Disturb Vegetation is you cannot have Disturb Vegetation and Pack Mule, which is another one of my favorite skills, at the same time. Pack Mule gives you an extra 3 kilograms of extra space for your inventory without making any additional sound, which I love, but you can't have both. So right now I am running with Disturb Vegetation, and let me show you what that does. And since we have a buddy standing right there and he doesn't seem to know I'm here, that's for you, my dude. Would you like 2? Okay, 2 for you. Now, if you do shoot something, always spot around the area. You never know when one of those red deer could be hiding and may run out from behind a bush or a tree, and it could be rare. Don't just assume that you've seen them all. Just check for ones that might be hiding. And there's our level 5. Okay, let's find some Disturbed Vegetation. So I definitely did spook some red deer out that I did not get to spot. So in which case, I'm going to pick up a track, make sure it's a male. I mean, if you're hunting for female rares, then pick up any track, but I personally am looking for a male. This is a piece of Disturbed Vegetation. So when you do have the Disturbed Vegetation skill, pick that up and it will tell you in the top right-hand corner what the fur type is for that track. So that's a light brown, and that is a common fur type. Now, if you're not sure, again, jump into the Discord and check the rare fur types for whatever species it is that you are tracking. And do that for every track. Ooh, we had 2 max weight red deer in here. Very sweet. And a dark brown. So we have a light brown and a dark brown. And there's another one. Oh my gosh, this was a nice zone. Might have to come back and shoot some of these. Now, there should be Disturbed Vegetation fairly close by, but you may have to track them for a little bit in order to find some. But whenever I see a piece of Disturbed Vegetation, I always pick it up because you just never know when you're going to find a rare fur. And to illustrate my point, I got this beautiful level 4 albino blue sheep on the beta from picking up its Disturbed Vegetation. And if I did not have that skill, I would never, well, I'm not going to say never, I probably eventually might have found him, but I definitely wouldn't have found him then. So it definitely did help me to get a rare. And recently, I was actually running with Pack Mule because I love Pack Mule. I mean, who doesn't want to have an extra 3 kilograms worth of extra space without making any additional sound? So I was using it. I decided, because I was hunting for a rare wild boar, to swap over to disturbed vegetation because I needed that extra little bit of help. And literally within 2 minutes, I picked up a disturbed veg for a melanistic wild boar. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. And we had a rare within a few minutes. Now that doesn't always happen. That is definitely not the case. I'm not saying that you're gonna find one right away. That was definitely very lucky indeed, but it definitely is going to help you to find more rares. So I do highly recommend, when you level up and get all your skills and perks, I do recommend getting disturbed vegetation if you are planning to hunt for rares. Now, if you have scoured your maps and you just can't find the rare that you're looking for, the last thing I would recommend that you do is head to multiplayer. Let's do that right now. Okay. Now, the only thing you need for multiplayer is you do need to have an internet connection, and you may have to pay a monthly fee depending on what platform you're on. But on PC, you do not. So you just go to multiplayer and you can scroll through the different maps. So for example, let's say we wanted to find a rare red deer and we wanted to hunt in Quattro. We're gonna put it on worldwide. That's it. There are only 3 maps open to Quattro right now, and you can see what time it is. And unfortunately, none of these times are red deer drink time. So maybe then I might want to check for a Parque Fernando map or an Emerald Coast map or a Hirschfelden map, any map with red deer. So here's Emerald Coast. Lots of maps for Emerald Coast. Very popular map. Great red deer map. And here we have a map that is at 6:25 and red deer drink from 4 to 8. So it is red deer drink time on this map. Okay, so then you want to pull open Holy Zones. Oh my gosh. This map has been hunted a lot. This is the opposite of a brand new map, basically. But hey, I'm very impressed. Wow. Maybe this person has this map open to multiplayer a lot, but wow, that's crazy. But let's have a look at a hotspot map for Emerald Coast. Okay, so basically red deer can be just about at any water source except for the East Coast, and they're not really in this bottom left corner, but they can drink just about anywhere else. Not really this piece here or here, but I'd say a good 90% of the map has red deer drinking there. So then you want to cover a lot of ground. Oh, this is a modded map. Look at the tents. Oh my gosh. Okay, you don't want to hunt on a modded map. I didn't even see that right away. That is crazy. So I'm not even gonna stick around. I am out of here, and I'm gonna find a map that is not modded. Okay, we are back at the drawing board. Now we want to find a red deer map in Emerald Coast during red deer drink time. Now I don't think this is the map we were on, so let's try this one. Now the one drawback to hunting in multiplayer is that you're not going to have your own tents on the map, so you're going to have to do more running unless the host has the map tented. So here we go. Now if you are looking for a brand new map, because we know brand new maps always have trophies on them, then zoom in and see how many zones are on the map. Now maps can be reset, so even if you have a map with a pile of zones, it could be a reset map, but finding a map that is open to multiplayer from a host that is below level 60, this host is level 54, then there is a good chance that it is a new map, and that guarantees you that there are at least some rares on the map. So I actually do look for new maps because it just increases my odds of finding something good. So that is definitely something I look for when I am looking for a multiplayer server. Like, look at this, guys. There are hardly any zones for crocs along the coast. So basically what I would then do is the same thing we do on our single player maps, is cover a lot of ground in the least amount of time possible. Now, before you start hunting on any map, whether it be single player or multiplayer, it's always a good idea to go into Discord and have a look at that info sheet and check out what the rare furs are for every species on the map, because not every species has albino, piebald, and melanistic as their rares, and there are some definite species, especially ducks and birds, that all have very unique rares, and often I wouldn't even know they were rare if I didn't check it in Discord. Can you believe I got a super rare rare, and I didn't even know it was a super rare until about 15 minutes later when I had a peek at my codex, saw that the Canada Goose was gray, and went and checked in Discord and saw that it was actually rare. I could have totally missed that. So had I checked and known that gray was rare for Canada Goose before I started hunting, I would have known when I shot it. So basically, when I have a look at the Emerald Coast info sheet, I just come down and look at the rares. Most of them are piebald, albino, and melanistic, but for example, mixed is a rare for feral goat. That's definitely not a common rare. You're only going to find that for feral goats. Pink is rare for feral pigs. Leucistic is rare for eastern gray kangaroo. And look at all the rares for saltwater croc. Light brown, piebald, leucistic, albino, and melanistic. But I happen to know that there are more than one variation of piebald for saltwater crocs. It's just smart to come and have a quick peek so you know what is rare on that map in case you do run into it. Okay, so I actually got kicked from that last multiplayer server, and that is going to happen sometimes in multiplayer, but I found a different one during Red Deer drink time. So I had a look up at this lake, and while it does have drink zones, none of them are for red deer. That means that no one has ever checked this lake for red deer, and there goes my Red Deer drink time. Man! So I guess we're gonna have to change maps and try again. And again, that can happen in multiplayer. But basically you wanna do the exact same thing that you do in single player. Cover a lot of ground, run and check as many lakes as you possibly can. And if you do find a rare in multiplayer, shoot that baby and pick it up as fast as you can, because I always find that when you are playing in multiplayer, things can go wrong a lot more easily, and you just wanna get that animal shot, harvested, and taxied as fast as possible, just in case you get kicked or someone comes along and ruins your trophy. It's just good advice to get that rare shot, harvested, and into your lodge as fast as possible when you are hunting in multiplayer. So the next way to put way more rares in your lodge is to set up a grind. Now you can set up a grind for any species in the game, and you can grind out rares. Now if you're setting up a grind for a species that does have a great one, you could also spawn a great one. You're also going to spawn diamonds. Anytime you shoot any animal in the game, that respawn could come back as a diamond or a rare. It's not going to super often, but when you do it over and over and over again, eventually that is what is going to happen. You will spawn some rares, you will spawn some diamonds, and if you keep shooting and you are shooting something like moose, whitetail, black bears, red deer, tar, or fallow deer, you could also spawn a great one. Now the very first step in setting up any grind is to find all of your drink zones. Now you don't need to do this for species that are predators, because anytime you shoot a zone with a predator in it, that zone is going to delete. It will often come back in the same spot, but not necessarily. But the zone will delete, so you definitely do not have to find all your zones when, say, you're setting up a grind for something like black bear or tigers or anything that's a predator. For herd animals, you definitely do need to find all your drink zones. Now, if you're setting up a first grind, or one of the easiest grinds in the game is fallow deer, and the reason it's the easiest is because it has the least amount of drink zones. Step one is find all of your drink zones. Once you have done that, then you want to set up on 16 zones with 16 tents. Now, I have my tent set up at 250 meters. I believe you can now drop your tent at about 200 meters because the spook distance when fast traveling to any tent since the last update is about 180 meters. And we have a nice big level 4 coming in. Very sweet. Now, I would recommend putting tripods down. Tripods are going to protect your zones. Anytime you shoot animals from any hunting structure, you can kill 15 animals and the 16th kill will delete the zone. When you're not using a hunting structure, you can only kill 3 animals and the 4th kill will delete the zone. So it is a lot easier to accidentally blow out need zones to delete them when you are not using a tripod. Now they are very expensive. Tents and tripods are going to run you at 16,000 in-game dollars each. So they do come with a hefty price tag. So you don't have to start with tripods, you can add them as you go. And anytime you do a grind where you're constantly shooting and harvesting animals, you are going to make money very quickly. And tripods and tree stands and tents and all that kind of gear is completely reusable if you're done that grind. If you want to, you can pull them up and put them down on another map later. So set up on 16 zones and then you can start shooting. Now, if you would like to do a herd managed grind, which is going to give you more diamonds and bigger rares, I will leave a link on how to do that in the description below. We're not going to get into herd management today. That's a completely different video. And we're gonna take 2. Now, I do have pickup tents because I am only working with 8 zones. If you want, you can set up on 8 zones and have pickup tents if you are just looking at spawning a rare. Now, if you're doing a grind for a great one, those rares are gonna be a byproduct of that grind. You will end up with rares, and eventually you will end up with a great one as well. Now, if you are grinding specifically for rares, I will warn you that diamonds will spawn more commonly than rares will. Whenever I do a grind, I always have way more diamonds than rares, and they're not going to come consistently. And what I mean by that is, let's say you get 1 rare for every 250 kills. I'm just guessing. However many rares you spawn, that is completely up to RNG, and RNG stands for random number generator, and basically it means luck. It's up to the game. It's not anything that we do, except for kill animals. But the level that we kill is important. Now, I try to shoot my mid-levels and up. I don't shoot tiny deer or tiny animals that I'm grinding unless I have absolutely nothing there to shoot. Now, if you are shooting the mid-levels and above, and what that's going to do is, number 1, it's going to help you to spawn diamonds more frequently, and number 2, it's going to help you to spawn larger rares. If you're shooting small stuff, you're going to spawn small stuff. Wouldn't you rather have a melanistic, albino, or piebald fallow deer with this beautiful rack as opposed to a tiny little one? I think you'd rather have the big one, wouldn't you? I know I would. And that depends on which level you are shooting. Now, if you get to a zone and you have nothing but small stuff, what I would then recommend doing is just pull your tent and tripod and go set up on another zone with bigger fallow deer in it, or whatever it is that you are grinding, and keep shooting those mid-levels and above. You can change your zones up in the middle of a grind. It's not going to hurt anything. Just make sure you check your respawns before you do. So once you are set up, then basically what you want to do, for example, for a fallow grind, set the time to fallow deer drink time, which is from 10 to 1300. Start jumping to that shooting tent, and I usually shoot 2 from each zone, run over and pick them up, go to the next zone, and do your full rotation. When it gets to the end of drink time, set the time back and continue grinding. When you're done the rotation, head back to that first zone and just keep rotating on your zones, shooting those mid-levels and above, and keep doing that, and eventually you will spawn a rare. But it's not going to happen instantly unless you get very lucky. Generally, sometimes it can take 300 or 400 kills, sometimes even more, before I see that first rare in a grind. But if you do have questions, guys, definitely leave them in the comments below. And if you did enjoy the video, splat that like button. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for more daily Call of the Wild content. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. And I'm gonna recommend that you watch this video next.